Hey there, Grateful Gang. Lauren here, the Gratitude Addict. Welcome to Gratefully Living the Chronic Life. I come to you every Thursday at this time to bring expert guests and gratitude spreaders and authors, experts, therapists, human beings, just wonderful people that come to us to offer us words of wisdom, tips, and tricks to help us live life with gratitude and resilience through life struggles. I personally live with chronic pain and illness, so that is sort of my specialty, that paired with gratitude. So, welcome. If it's your first time watching, I welcome you here. I know you're going to love tonight's episode because I have a phenomenal guest with me tonight who's actually become a friend. Her name's Dr. Peggy DeLong. She's otherwise known as the Gratitude Psychologist. She also happens to live locally to me, which is really, I don't think it's ever happened. So I'm excited to introduce her to all of you. She's got a really incredible and powerful story of grief and love and gratitude and resilience, and really has a powerful message for all of us. So before I bring her on, just a couple of things. If you're a member of my community, which is Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain, let's see, I have a little, there we go. Here's the community on Facebook, AOG as we lovingly call it. If you are watching from inside the group, because we're a private group and I use a platform called StreamYard, you need to grant StreamYard permission to use your name and, now my mouse isn't working. Your name and profile photo. If you want to make I shouldn't say if you want to make a comment, you can make any comment, but if you comment and you don't grant them permission, you come up as Facebook user only on my end. It'll look like your name comes up on your end, but on my end, it won't. Why is that a problem? Only because we're giving away a free book tonight. Peggy has graciously agreed to give away a free copy of one of her books called I Can See Clearly Now, a memoir about love, grief, and gratitude. And with the program that I use, if you want to win, you type in hashtag gratitude in the comments and it will pull your name. So if you don't grant StreamYard permission, you will not get picked up by that. So in order to do that, you just need to go to either log back out, log back in, or go to StreamYard.com/Facebook. You're going to see this window pop up. Just press that blue button. Many of you have trouble with this each week. If you do, you can watch me on any of my public channels. YouTube is one of them. And let me give you the link to my YouTube or to this YouTube stream. I'm going to put this in the comments. Hopefully it will work because many of you I know have issues with that. So hopefully that works. So you can click on that link and you don't have to grant any permission or anything for any of that. We are an interactive broadcast. I very highly encourage you to please give us questions, comments, anything that you have to share. Dr. Peggy will be happy to answer anything that you have because she's got her stories it's beautiful. This book is it's a love story on so many levels. I was talking to her about it prior to the broadcast and you guys are going to love her. Finally, before I bring her on, in case you've been not following me at all, you will know that I have a big event coming next week. Next Wednesday is World Gratitude Day, which I normally make a big deal out of each year, but this year is on a much bigger scale because I am hosting one event, but also sponsoring another event. So the first event, which Dr. Peggy is going to be a part of, is the Women of Gratitude Live Virtual Roundtable. So this is next Wednesday. I won't be having a broadcast next Thursday night. Doing this next Wednesday. It starts at 7:00 Eastern Standard, so an hour earlier than what this broadcast is. And it's 7 of the world's leading female gratitude experts. I am just so completely humbled by this diverse array of these amazing, powerful gratitude spreaders. So this event is free. It is 90 minutes. You do have to register though. And in order to register, go to womenofgratitude.com and you can find the registration link on there. Also, earlier in the day, I've teamed up with the people behind the new film Gratitude Revealed, which is by Louis Schwartzberg. And he is offering us a special screening of the film that is earlier in the day. The North American screening actually conflicts with the Women of Gratitude, but the European screening is earlier in the day. It doesn't matter if you're in Europe or not, you can watch this screening. So tickets for this one are not free. They are $12. That gets you a live viewing link. Also the ability to watch the Q&A with Louis Schwartzberg after the fact. And if you can't watch live, you will get an on-demand link to watch the film, I believe, for the next 3 days. So that you can also find both of these. You can register and find out more at, got my handy dandy things here, womenofgratitude.com, both of those. So please register. The Women of Gratitude is completely free. I'm not giving out your emails to anybody. We just need you to register, and then you will get a viewing link the day of. So I do hope you join us. It's going to be an incredible discussion. Let's see. Those of you who were at from AOG who were at the 10,000 member celebration last week, this was a private broadcast I did just in the group. Your prizes will come after World Gratitude Day. I can't get to it this week, nor will I get to it next week, but the following week, your prizes will go in the mail. So please be patient. It's been a little crazy, but in a good way, full of gratitude stuff. And there will be no gratitude circle tomorrow or next week either. I'll be going away for a much needed R&R weekend with my husband. So no gratitude circle. So without further ado, let me bring on my guest who is just amazing, Dr. Peggy DeLong. Thank you for being with us, Peggy.
Thank you so much for having me, Lauren.
So those of you that have watched me in the past, you know that my big joke, but it's true. I stalk my guests. So I find somebody, a book or a social media account that I like, and I hunt them down basically. So I had followed Peggy. I'm not on Instagram that often, and I guess I had followed Dr. Peggy a while ago, and she's listed as Dr. Peggy DeLong, gratitude psychologist, right? You're known as the gratitude psychologist. Somewhere along the line, I must have followed you, and you had this beautiful post, and I kind of did a double take, and I'm like, gratitude psychologist, what? And so I hunted you down, and we had a nice discussion. It turns out you live 20 minutes from me. And tomorrow, we're actually, the two of us are going into New York City together to see a live screening of the film in New York City. So I'm very grateful that we've become friends and that we'll be doing that together for the world premiere of it.
Yes, looking forward to it. Can't wait.
Yeah. So I don't even know where to start. So you are a clinical psychologist.
Yes.
And you specialize in gratitude and grief.
Yes.
And you've got a really incredible story of grief. I mean, the memoir I told you, I couldn't put it down. It's really just, it's written so well, first of all, but really just, it brought me back to like courtship with my husband and like the whole butterflies in the stomach thing. Why don't you tell us a bit about, how you got started, your story, how you got started in gratitude? I know I'm asking you like a whole million questions all in that one, but why don't you give us a little bit of background into how you got started in this?
Sure. I'll start with how I got started with gratitude, and it was completely unintentional. I was quite an ungrateful teen and an ungrateful young adult. I grew up in an area with tremendous privilege and did a lot of comparing, and that made me feel like I had less than, even though I had no, valid, true reason to feel that way. But just so busy as teens often do, just comparing. And it took tragedy in my life to discover the power of gratitude. And I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing at the time. I just knew that it made me feel better. So I was 26 years old and I was engaged to be married about 3 months during the engagement. I had applied to graduate schools and I had 6 schools lined up for interviews. I was so excited to be finally realizing my dream of starting my doctoral program to become a psychologist. And the week of my first interview, it really, what appeared to be literally overnight, my fiance developed a lump on the side of his neck. And he said, come and take a look at this in the morning. And I just knew I just had a terrible feeling in my stomach that this was not good. And I remember looking out the window and imagining my life without him. I just had this awful feeling that I would be living my life without him. And it
Which
was a very,
you described it so beautifully, like the prologue of the book. You what you just said, you sum it up. It gave me a pit in my stomach where you talk about that feeling and that lump on his neck and how you felt. You knew things weren't going to be the same.
and when he finally got a diagnosis, he was 27, and they told him that without treatment, he probably had about 2 weeks to live. And with treatment, he had about a 15% chance of survival. And I must have put that out of my mind because I don't remember that. The only reason I remember that is because I wrote everything down, which is essentially my memoir, because I didn't have to recall anything. It was all written down. But my brain needed to put that aside in order for me to be there for him. So unfortunately, he only survived 7 months later. And it was right around Labor Day that we had come back from a trip, and he spiked a fever, and he was supposed to be getting a bone marrow transplant. And unfortunately, we went to the emergency room, and he was admitted, and he never came home. And it was during those days that I discovered the power of gratitude. When the doctors said that there was nothing left that they could do for him and that he was going to die, I found comfort in a simple cup of hazelnut coffee when everything was so unpredictable. I didn't know if he'd be able to open his eyes and look at me that day. I didn't know if he'd be able to speak my name. I didn't know if any doctors were going to come by and ask, and so I could have my questions answered. It was so just nauseating unpredictability that I was living with. And I didn't know if he was going to die that day. But the one thing that was predictable, in addition to all of the support that he and I got, was that I could get this cup of hazelnut coffee. After all of the visitors left at 8 p.m., they let me stay. And I would be so comforted by the predictability of that cup. And he would sometimes be sleeping, and I would be drinking my coffee. I would sip and then journal, sip and journal. And that cup of coffee became so important to me. And at the time, I had no idea that what I was doing was practicing gratitude for the very simplest of things. When I felt like my whole future had been taken from me and his life, it was the simplicity of that cup. And then, unfortunately, then I came back home to live with my parents. And suddenly and unexpectedly, 6 weeks later, my father died. So I was 26 and my mother was 52. And we found ourselves two young widows living together. Never imagined in our worst nightmares that would be the way 1994 turned out. Where just a couple months earlier, those two men were racing each other on mountain bikes. It happened so quickly.
Yeah.
So if I'm able to find gratitude in a simple cup of hazelnut coffee on the worst time of my life, it's become my mission to help other people. And then I went to graduate school. I took a year off. I was very grateful that my program didn't make me reapply. They saved my spot. So I took a year off and started the next year. And that really inspired my interest in all things positive psychology and strength-based type therapy. And I always like to say that it's so much more than just talking about positive things. I believe firmly that we need to honor our pain, that life is bittersweet. And when we shut ourselves off to emotional pain, we also shut ourselves off to joy. So a lot of my work as a therapist is helping people experience both and have some really effective research-backed tools to move forward when we allow ourselves to feel grief or disappointment or betrayal, because those feelings need to be felt and expressed. They get stuck in us if they don't have some type of outlet and aren't felt. I love the phrase, "We cannot heal what we don't feel."
Right.
So that's half of the equation, but we don't want to get stuck there. So gratitude is my favorite way to move forward after we have allowed ourselves to feel emotional pain.
Mine too. And while our grief is different, there are similarities there. Living with chronic pain and illness, like a diagnosis, all of a sudden you're left with this thing that I have no control over, right? And it is going to happen. And, I spent a lot of years, I did suppress my feelings, and it manifested in very unhealthy ways for me. It manifested in addiction. Um, I mistakenly told myself, I think, for a while that I was drinking to ease the physical pain, but, and work with personal, my own growth and all of that, I realized that it may have been more actually the emotional pain, but it actually caused more, in the long run. Um, but, the grief it takes on a lot of different faces. And so I can appreciate what you're saying about the consistency about your hazelnut coffee, because it's one thing you can count on, you
Yes,
know.
and I really honed in on that. It was its predictability that I appreciated so much. That without fail, that was one thing that brought me comfort when the lights would go dim, and it was just so incredibly lonely in that hospital room. And uh, he only wanted me, and I loved that, but it just made it a very lonely place when he wasn't awake and it was just me. And then there was a period of time when he actually had I guess it would be a certified nurse assistant, which I labeled that person the protector, because he was so at times like just not functioning his cognitive abilities, and he would get confused and sometimes try to get up when it was dangerous. So there was somebody in the corner in the dark there present all the time, and that it was a male, a very tall man that was so lovely and kind that my nickname for him was the protector.
Hmm.
So even though I couldn't talk with him because that just wasn't his role, but his presence made me feel very safe.
I'm sure that must have been terrifying, a terrifying time for you, and you wanted to be there for Scott, and that must have been, I can't even imagine the emotions, that you must have been going through. You're losing your fiance, the man you thought you were spending the rest of your life with, and you're 26 years old, and then I'm sure there must have been a level of responsibility that you felt like you needed to be there all the time. I can't imagine the emotions that you went through.
And I was there all the time except 2 nights. There were 2 nights that I just needed to go home and sleep in my own bed in order to refuel to continue to be there for him. And on one of those mornings, he knew I was still coming, but he called me at 6 in the morning, and he asked me to make a list of everybody that I knew who had passed away. And that was scaring me. For me, that kind of made me feel that he was close to death. And when I got to the hospital and I asked him why he wanted this list, he told me it was because he saw them in his dream and they welcomed him, but he didn't know who they were. They all knew who he was. So he wanted this list to help make sense of who they were. And
Mm.
before then, he was agnostic. And when we were going through the required pre-marriage counseling, I'm Catholic,
Mhm.
he was not, but it was a requirement that we go through that. And he was telling the priest that he didn't believe in God or anything, and I'm kicking him under the
That
table.
must have gone over well. We had to do the pre-Cana too, because my husband's not Catholic.
I'm like, don't say that. He's not going to marry us. But then right before he died, I just remember one time he just shot right up out of bed and said, I changed my mind. There is a God. And his experiences when he was nearing death just were so beautiful and just indescribable, the things that he was saying that provide me with so much comfort that I don't fear death. Like of course I don't want to die, but when my time comes, because of what he went through and taught me, I'm not afraid.
Wow, that's
So
profound.
that was his gift to me, and I think it was even more powerful because he was agnostic. and just
Right.
had this something, and he really couldn't talk about it, but something beautiful happened that he just wanted to share.
Wow. That is powerful. That is beautiful. Um, Gang, this is all in this beautiful book. If you'd like to win a copy, we're going to do a drawing at the end of the episode. Just type hashtag gratitude somewhere in the comments. I see, I'm very pleased to see, it looks like everybody has signed in tonight because I'm seeing names. Hi, Courtney. Jane, hello. How are you? Hi, Linda. Glad you're here. Hi, Sue. Thank you for being here. Hey, Shannon. Nice to see you. Hi, Linda. Jill, you're all signed in. You're good. Christine, hello. Arlene, hello. Jill, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your book. Heidi, I do see your name. This might be a first, gang. This might be a first. So many blessings. So exciting. Courtney, I'm so excited to hear Dr. DeLong. You just wait. Sandy, hello. Tragedy to discover gratitude. Exactly. Wow. I think so. You and I had lunch maybe about 6 weeks or so ago, and we talked about post traumatic growth, I believe, and I love that term because I feel very strongly that that is part of what happened with me. You know, while my tragedy was very different, I do know that, you know, my rock bottom, that June 20th, 2013 could have ended a lot differently for me. I could either be in prison or I could be dead. So, you know, I use that as like my basis for gratitude, and know that anything, even the worst of days, is better than that day. So it was like it was the worst day of my life, but it also was just such a springboard for me to get into this beautiful work that I'm privileged to do. And what, you know, I told you when you and I first met, I think what makes you unique as a therapist is so many doctors do not share their personal story. And so you don't know what they go through. You know, at the pain program I was in, I didn't say this, but many of the patients were like, what do you know? You don't live with pain. What do you know? We don't know if they live with pain or not because they didn't share with us. And I know you're not supposed to, but you do. And I think that's what makes you so powerful and so unique, in that I can relate to you because of your personal experience.
And that was a big shift for me because of my training. I particularly went to a school that was psychodynamic training, where we really were taught not to share, to be more of a blank slate for the client, and not to be concerned about anything about the therapist. So when I started speaking publicly about gratitude and doing workshops and presentations, I wouldn't say anything about my background, and it would be very clinical and dry. And people were interested, but as soon as I started sharing my story, the interest level increased like 10 times. And I'm often told that's why people want to work with me, either one-on-one or through one of my programs, because I share and they know I understand. And there's just a gentle knowing, unspoken knowing, when you have no one goes through the same thing. And I can never say that I completely understand what somebody's going through, because that's theirs.
Right.
But there's some level of understanding that comes when you've been through something similar. I needed that after my fiance and my father died. I sought out a therapist who I knew didn't know just textbook grief, but knew grief. That meant a lot to me. And I feel, so honored that I'm in this position of being able to help people. It's part of how I have made sense and meaning out of my pain. And that's part of the post-traumatic growth, when we can find meaning. In fact, one of the very first books that I read when my brain was even capable of reading words on a page, I read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And
I
it
have it
just,
right behind my head there. It's a great book.
it just helped me tremendously, not only with his personal story, but with him being a psychiatrist, him talking about what he referred to as logotherapy, that when you find meaning in your life, it helps to make sense of your pain. It makes life worth living and just more powerful and fulfilling. And we can create that without tragedy, but when you do have a tragedy or trauma, it is one way to not get stuck in post-traumatic stress, but to turn that into post-traumatic growth.
Right. And then providing service for others helps us get outside of our own pain, right? For those of you that may not know, Viktor Frankl is a Holocaust survivor who is a tremendous writer. A Man's Search for Meaning is probably one of my top 10 favorite books of all time. He's just such a wise man. I'm sharing quotes in the group of his all the time. But I mean, when you hear these things from a Holocaust survivor, you just all of a sudden things really go into perspective, right? And so how has your grief put your current life into perspective? You've already, I know you've shared a little bit, but how is that you're not afraid of death any longer? And now, so if you're not, I'm not either. But how has that changed how you live your life today?
With so much gratitude for everything. When you lose something that means so much to you, you have a choice of course, there's going to be a period of mourning, and then something just switches a little bit when you start to feel a little bit better, let joy to come back in, and gratitude. And that was it for me, that I appreciate everything so much more than I ever did before. And I love that there's so much research behind the power of gratitude. So it's not just some fluff thing that we talk about that makes us feel good. As a psychologist, it's really actually my license depends on it, that I talk about things that are proven to be effective. And that's what I love about gratitude and the advances in technology, that we can measure that when people practice gratitude on a regular basis, a couple wonderful things are happening. We're getting a dose of serotonin and dopamine in our brain that's responsible for the immediate feel-good feeling. And when we practice on a regular basis, we're forming new neural pathways to be more positive thinkers. And some studies that have shown that people who have rated themselves to be lifelong pessimists, that when they practice gratitude for even a month, they can become low-level optimists, even at 70 years old.
Low-level optimist. I've never heard that before. I like that.
And that's really powerful, for just a month of practicing a simple exercise in gratitude, to go from 70 years of being a low-level pessimist to a low-level optimist.
So there is hope for people who just have always been pessimistic and who,
Absolutely.
but it requires being proactive and doing it a regular practice. It's not going to just come to us, right?
Right. It requires two things. First, desire.
Right.
And then the daily practice. The good news is the daily practice does not need to take long at all. In fact, my signature talk is 5 daily exercises in gratitude in less than 5 minutes a day. So I think everybody's got 5 minutes to spare and doing these 5 things. That, for example, the first one really takes 2 seconds, and that's to say thank you upon wakening, and not even to be concentrating on what you're thankful for, but simply to say the words thank you out loud. And I think this particular exercise is attributed to Wayne Dyer, but it's trickled down, and I forget where I learned it. But it's a wonderful exercise through the power of language. All of our lives, those 2 words, thank you, are associated with positivity. We thank people for nice things. We don't thank people for crummy things unless we're being sarcastic. But typically we thank people for nice things. So automatically when we say thank you, it primes our brain for positivity. And to simply say those 2 words out loud, it boosts the neurotransmitters in the brain that make us feel good. And it's a wonderful way to start the day before your feet even hit the floor, simply to say thank you out loud. And that takes 2 seconds.
Right.
And then I have 4 other exercises. And then even when you do all 5, it doesn't need to take more than 5 minutes a day.
I think that's a great tip. Is that different? Oh no, the 5 daily exercises to heal grief is something different. So you have a free.
Well, it's the same, but
Okay.
but this one in particular, I wrote it for people who are grieving, because I think that is where it's truly so powerful when you can, and I always like to clarify that it's not about being grateful for your loss or your tragedy. It's transforming it somehow, and they can coexist. You can be in grief and grateful at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. And when you slowly allow joy and you slowly can be grateful for simple things, it does make you feel better. It doesn't make the problems in your life go away or the world go away, but it can make you feel better. And so that's why I have a general one, but then on my website, I have a specific one for people who are grieving that they can download this, the 5 exercises.
Okay. So her website is drpeggydelong.com, which will be in the show notes as well. But she has 5 daily exercises in gratitude to heal grief. It's a free handout. So drpeggydelong.com/grief. And then you also have a 5-week program that people can sign up for. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. That is specifically for widows. And this is really like honoring my 26-year-old self, kind of what I wish that I had had at that time. So it's weekly meetings with a group of women who are also grieving, and then daily support from me with ideas to help move through the very most difficult, painful days of grief, using things that are backed by research and psychology, things that have worked for me and my clients. And I give one email a day with a suggestion that comes with a video and something that can be downloaded. So it's a 5-week program designed to heal grief, or to begin healing grief. It's a lifelong process. I don't think with that, and that's why I chose the word heal and not healed, because we're every day healing. So the title of the program is Heal, and that's specifically for widows.
Wonderful. I just put the actual links to them in the comments, but they will be in the show notes as well. But if you go on Peggy's website, you can find them as well. I highly encourage you to take advantage of it. Make sure when you are entering to win the book, you put a hashtag in front of the word gratitude. I see a couple that one has hashtag after gratitude and one with no hashtag. So make sure you have that in there. Let's get to some more comments. I want to hear any questions that you guys may have for Peggy. Please feel free. If you have any grief in your life, or even if it's not necessarily losing a spouse, but other kinds of grief, I'd like to hear from you too. If you haven't lost a spouse, but we're grieving, say, the loss of our abilities, a lot of my audience have lost occupations and friends, and maybe even spouses, because the divorce rate is high with people that get ill. We lose abilities, we lose hobbies. How do you deal with that kind of grief with an attitude of gratitude?
I think it's somewhat similar in that, kind of let yourself off the hook and get down to like the very basics of the things in your life that are going well. And the reason this is so powerful is because our brains really can't tell the difference whether we're being grateful for something small or that we might take for granted, but truly isn't small, like the fact that we have running water or a roof over our heads. Like those are all wonderful things to be celebrated and grateful for. And like our brain can't tell if we're being grateful for that or winning the lottery. It doesn't matter. What you're doing is training your brain to see more good in the world and not even notice the negative, or what previously may have annoyed you. You might not even notice anymore. And that is the brain doing its job. We have part of the brain is called the reticular activating system, otherwise known as the RAS, and it works as a filtering system. And the good part is that we get to tell it what's important to us. So when we tell our brains that gratitude and noticing good things is important to us, it works as a filter and helps us notice more to be grateful for. And not even notice the negative or things that might annoy us. And I like to give the example of how the RAS works that I think a lot of people can relate to. Let's say you're in the market for a new car. So a couple of years ago, my husband's truck died, and it was so old, they just said that it wasn't worth repairing, that it was time for him to get a new car. So all of a sudden, he decided he wanted to get a white Jeep. So before that day, before he decided on the white Jeep, we didn't really notice all the white Jeeps on the road. But as soon as he decided that that was the car he was going to buy, all of a sudden, white Jeeps are everywhere. Now, the
Mhm.
world didn't increase in white Jeeps. We told our brains, this is important, pay attention.
That's a good
And
example.
it works with anything. I love working with it with gratitude. One simple, this is one of my exercises. It's actually exercise number 2. It's setting your intention at the beginning of the morning to be more aware of your blessings, simply to be more aware and more receptive to the good things in your life. And by doing that, you're actually going to notice more because of the reticular activating system. And this doesn't need to take any more time. You can do it while you're in the shower. You can do it while you're brushing your teeth. I've actually heard of Mel Robbins, author that I love to follow.
Mm.
She's written The High Five Habit. She talks about when we attach something like that to an activity with a non-dominant hand. So if you're brushing your teeth, use your non-dominant hand while you're setting your intention, and it will become even more powerful because it will feel strange. So just an interesting
Interesting. Yeah, for
and it's
sure.
and it's helpful to attach it to an already existing behavior. So if you brush your teeth every morning, then make that how you set your intention. And I like to use the door frame of my bedroom as a physical reminder to ask myself, like, have I set my intention of the day yet? Whether it's to practice gratitude, drink more water, it works with anything. So when we take that 30 seconds, or even while we're simultaneously doing another activity, it doesn't need to take any more time, but setting our intention is a really powerful way to truly be a more grateful person.
Great idea. We can even put a sticky on our mirror for when we get ready in the morning when we're brushing our teeth. You know, a sticky reminder, at least for the meantime, to remind us. That's great. I'm big on setting intentions, and we do it in the group every morning. But I think you're so right. I think awareness is a really good, well, willingness, like you had already said, a willingness to change is, you have to be willing, but then awareness of things, you do start to notice those white Jeeps, and you do start to notice, oh gosh, yeah, I do have this really nice coffee mug with which has blessed on it, and I do have this wonderful bracelet that my friend Peggy made for me, which we'll talk about in a minute. You know, but all kidding aside, you do start to notice that, yes, I'm in pain, and yes, it stinks, but I also have clothes to wear, and I have shelter, and all of these things that can sometimes, most often, get taken for granted, you know? Um,
And it's not, and like I mentioned before, it's not to ignore our troubles and to ignore the emotional pain or physical pain, but gratitude is a one way that you can feel better in while you're still dealing with whatever that was. So
right.
when I was in the hospital practicing gratitude, even though I didn't really know that's what I was doing, for that cup of hazelnut coffee, it didn't change the fact that my fiance was dying. It didn't change my deep sorrow, but I did feel better. That predictability and focusing on it helped me to feel better, because what we focus on grows. And we get to choose what we focus on. It can be really difficult, but it is possible to make that shift and choose to focus. And it can start really small. And I like to call it highlighting the good or exaggerating the good, and just picking one thing that you might notice that is not a big deal at all, and then choosing to make it a big deal. Like sometimes I look out at the green grass and out my window, and it's just green grass. But if I focus on how beautiful that color is, I appreciate it more. So that's just one simple example of how we can exaggerate the good.
I love it, and it works both ways too, doesn't it? Because we nourish what we feed it. So if we're constantly focused on how much pain we're in, we're nourishing that misery. But if we're nourishing our appreciation and our gratitude, it builds and it does grow. And like you said, you can actually rewire your brain. It sounds, you and I were talking before the episode, you know, for people that don't understand gratitude, they think it's just the hot buzzword of the moment, and that, you know, we're just telling people to look on the bright side and, oh, people have it much worse than you, whatever. They don't really truly understand that it's a proactive practice, and that it's simple, but it's not easy, right?
Exactly right. Exactly. It's powerful,
Right.
and it can be really difficult to get started. Many people want to start, and that's why I love doing my presentations, because I give people so many different ideas to get started, including one of them, my gratitude journal. A lot of people have heard about the power of using a gratitude journal, and I came across some research that makes it even more powerful. That when we choose to do a gratitude journal, if we do it on a regular basis, if you do two things, it will be even more powerful. One is to be specific. So if you're writing that you're grateful for your best friend, why? Is it because she keeps your secrets? She's got a great laugh, that you've been friends 20 years? Like, really get specific about why you're grateful for her. And then the other is to mix it up every day. So if you wrote about your best friend one day, then for the rest of the month, don't write about being grateful for her. And that helps us scan our environment for all of the wonderful things that we may have missed. And when we do those two things, the research shows that a gratitude is much more powerful.
Mm.
And when I would give my workshops, people would ask for suggestions for one they could find. And I didn't know of one that existed. So I wrote one where, and often the other thing that people sometimes have difficulty with is, well, I don't know what to write about. So I give a writing prompt. So you don't even need to think about anything. I give a quick writing prompt, and I change it up for 30 days. So for 30 days, you're thinking about something different, whether it's an experience, a person, an object in your house, to think about it in detail, and then it repeats 12 times. So it's 30 different prompts, and it repeats 12 times to make a full year of a gratitude journal. And you don't have to do it every day. It's more powerful if you do it every day. But I specifically didn't give them dates like April 1st,
Right.
April 2nd, and it's just day one, day two. So if you miss a day, it's not,
Not a
you
lot of
don't feel like
pressure.
you're falling behind or anything.
Right. So these are your 3 books, and these can be found on your website, as well as Amazon, I believe. But so Gratitude Journal is the one you're talking about now, yes?
Yes.
Um, and then you've also got one, Feeling Good, 35 Proven Ways to Happiness Even During Tough Times, which actually we have a question here from a viewer. Want to understand how to find gratitude in difficult situations. So that's a great
And
question to answer.
my suggestion would be to keep it simple. And sometimes when you can't find anything to be grateful for, think about what you might be taking for granted. It could be running water. It could be that you had a bed to sleep on, and all of these things we somehow lose over the course of time appreciation for when they're expected things. One thing that I appreciate my bed, because I know what it's like to sleep on a hospital hard floor. That we don't have to have a horrible experience like that to be grateful for something. It can simply be a choice, and choosing to be grateful for what we might take for granted. So that's one idea. And the other thing is just really keeping it simple. What is one simple thing? And like I said before, your brain can't tell the difference if it's something simple or something huge. Like, we assign meaning to that. Our brains can't tell.
Mm,
So
interesting.
really keep it simple. Let yourself off the hook, and then slowly it starts to grow. Our thoughts have energy, and they kind of snowball, and it works against us and for us. When we're stuck on a negative thought, it grows and grows and grows, and then can feel catastrophic.
Right.
Same thing when we're thinking about something positive. It develops more energy into just feeling good energy-wise, and more positive thoughts.
I
But
like that, keeping simple, because I think we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to come up with something. It's got to be good. It's got to be good, but keeping it simple is a really great piece of advice for sure.
yes, yes, and I mean really simple, and noticing when things are happening during the day. And I'll give a silly example. If I ever use a public restroom, like, I can't stand the doors that go in and give you very little room to move around.
Yeah.
I love it when a restroom door goes out and
Mm,
lets you move.
Good point. I've
And
never had a conversation with anybody in my life about that, but that's a great point.
well, and I notice these things, and I appreciate them.
Mm,
And part of that is because I've trained my brain to notice them, and then they make me feel good. Where someone else might notice but not connect to it as much. Like I just make a big deal out of everything, and that makes me feel good. But I always like to say it's never at the expense of ignoring emotional pain ever. Um, Gratitude comes after we've allowed ourselves to feel pain, because that pain is, if it doesn't have some outlet or expression, it just gets stuck.
right. It can manifest in bad ways. It's not healthy for us. But and I don't want to put words in your mouth. In my experience, I feel that we just can't live there forever. You know, we need to deal with them, and we'll always feel that grief. But you know, for me at least, it was, and the reason why I started AOG was I want people to be able to look and say, okay, I have this, come to a place of acceptance for it. Now what? How, because I don't want my life to just be in misery. I've been there, done that. It wasn't fun. I want to know my life's not the way I envisioned it, but how can I pivot to find joy and purpose in my life? And for me, gratitude and connection has been the answer for that.
And that is the basis of my other book, Feeling Good: 35 Proven Ways to Happiness. That's the second half after we've allowed ourselves to feel pain. Well, then what? Part of allowing ourselves is trusting that we're not going to get stuck there, and having some really effective concrete tools that you can utilize after you've allowed yourself to experience pain can help move forward. And gratitude is one of them in my book. There's several others. There's connecting with nature, spending time with a good friend, just so there's 35 different ways in the book. And the reason I wrote that book is because all of my life people have asked me, what do I do to be so happy?
Mm.
And I really brought it back to my childhood. So the 35 things that I mentioned, most of them came directly from my childhood. Knitting or doing those latch hook rugs, and
Yeah.
that creativity, that made me feel good. If I had a difficulty with a friend, I would go out in nature and be around all the ferns. I can picture it now, all the ferns. I had some really special things that I knew made me feel better. I would invite a friend over, just some simple things that made me feel better. And then I made each of them into a chapter and backed it up by research. And the reason that I felt really compelled to write that book was because even after people knew that my fiance died and my father died, and I still got that question. Like how it kind of took on a different form. Instead of how do you are so happy, it was how are you not falling apart. And it was because I still did these things, these very simple things of walking in nature, listening to soothing music, doing some type of creative activity.
Being silly with a friend, allowing
Yes,
yourself to be silly with
that's
a
a
friend,
chapter.
laughing. Yeah, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, be goofy is a chapter.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a chapter in my intention journal too. I think we grow up, we think we're not allowed to be silly anymore. My best friend died 2 years ago, and I was, pretty much her primary caregiver, and we were silly, and we would laugh. We went to hibachi restaurant in our pajamas one time, and we were just so silly, and these but she taught me how to live like I was dying, and so those are lessons I will never forget. She wasn't a spouse, obviously, or fiance, obviously, either, but those are lessons I will take with me for the rest of my life, and you know, she helped me to grow through my experience with her. And I think that I think when we're young, we're in such a rush to grow up, and then we're grown up and we think, you know, we need to be a grown up, but being silly is fantastic. And it's such a release, isn't it? To be silly.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned creativity, and you mentioned nature a few times, and I want to talk about that because a lot of your work has to do with marrying gratitude and nature. You do a lot of nature hikes. I know you're very outdoorsy. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and how you find gratitude in nature?
Sure. Well, nature has such healing powers that we really don't even need to do anything. We can specifically practice gratitude while we're out in nature by noticing sights and smells and really connecting with that. But we don't even need to. Like, nature just is so powerful without us doing anything. And specifically, if we're around water and trees, I love one of the things that I love about my publisher is that she really encouraged me strongly to find the research related to every claim that I was making. So I found lots of research related to how we're biologically connected to water and everything that water does for us with mental health, physical health, immune functioning. There's a great book called Blue Mind and by Wallace Nichols, and he talks about just so much research about how being around, on, in, or looking at water helps with mental health. And also trees. Trees help with our immune functioning, and it doesn't even have to be for mental health around trees with foliage. It can be evergreens or even in the winter trees without any leaves. Simply the trees. One study looked at people gazing out at landscape with no trees, and the other in winter gazing out at landscape that had trees but without leaves. And even when the trees didn't have any leaves, the people reported more of a boost in mood by looking at the trees.
Wow.
And it's just one of the simplest things that we can do when our energy level is really low, just to sit by some type of tree or water. If you can hear and listen like a babbling brook, it automatically just calms down the nervous system, and we can't see it, but it's helping reduce the stress hormone cortisol, reduces blood pressure, and so many wonderful things. And when we do it with other people, it has the added social benefit. And people report feeling closer with the people that they are spending time in nature, closer in their relationship than if they had done another activity like shopping or out to dinner. That there's some type of closeness that happens when people are spending time in nature together.
Wow, how interesting. So there's something to tree hugging. That's a chapter in my book. Also, the grounding or earthing, and I like to walk around when I can outside of my bare feet because I feel the connection with my bare feet with the earth. I find that to be very soothing. I love to spend time out in my garden. I find it very mindful and helps me to forget about everything else that's going on in my life, even though it's briefly.
Yes.
And you
Well,
organize local hikes for women.
yes, I call them growth and healing hikes. So it's so much more than a hike, than just the physical activity of hike. We stop and we notice nature, and I teach them how to use different parts of landscape for healing. We set our intention at the beginning and kind of use that as we're going through the woods or water. It's really powerful experience. I run that about 4 times a year for any women who are local to New Jersey.
Great. I am totally neglected. We have so many comments. I love that you guys are loving Dr. Peggy so much. Let's see. Tragedy to discover gratitude. Exactly. Wow. Unpredictable comfort equals gratitude. God shows up in amazing ways. Absolutely. Wow. So powerful. Tears. I just lost one of my very best friends. I'm sorry, Courtney. I'm sorry. Beautiful story, says Angela. Suzanne said, post-traumatic growth, find meaning in your life, makes sense in trauma. Wow. There was one. I apologize. I'm not getting to everybody here. What an amazing program for widows. Jane says, loss of ability and friends. Yeah, here it is. Angela says, grief is truly a lifelong process. Monday was the 24th anniversary of losing my 8-year-old daughter. Oh, God. I lost my mother the year after her and my youngest brother the year before my daughter. All were tragic losses. I have been in pain for 20 years and recently learned I have late-stage neuro-Lyme. I have had increasing chronic pain for 20 years and feel so sad that I have lost being a part of so much in life. How can gratitude help the physical pain? I'm sorry for all of your losses, Angela.
And I would say what I mentioned before, that keeping it simple and letting yourself off the hook that it needs to be something huge, connecting with something very simple and special that happened in one day. It could be an experience, a person in your life, a memory, an item that you have, or some of the other things that we might take for granted, like the running water and a roof over our heads. And in fact, that's like my go-to thing on my worst day. I just kind of stumbled upon the hazelnut coffee thing. I didn't intentionally do that, but on days when it does feel really heavy, when things aren't going well, that's my go-to thing, is to think about what I might be taking for granted. And it doesn't make the issue that you're dealing with go away, but it can, simply by releasing the neurotransmitters in your brain, help to elevate mood, sometimes just enough to have a shift in your day to feel better and have a better outcome of a day. It's not going to, magically make everything better, but as you're going through it, it can help you feel better emotionally, and your energy can feel a little bit lighter, simply by focusing on the very simplest of things that you can be grateful for. And I also like to, if you're choosing to think about people, if you're thinking about a person that you're grateful for, share that. Make an effort to let that person know that you've thought about them, either by a text or email. And that's a wonderful way to not only practice gratitude and feel good, but you're also making somebody else feel good in the process of sharing.
Great advice. Thank you. Um, I just looked at the time. I can't even believe it. I thought we had 20 minutes left. I can't even believe it. I don't want to let the hour go by, though, without talking about you have one other thing that you do, which I hinted about. You're a jewelry maker as well. You have a business called, is it
Love,
Midnight
love in a bracelet.
Love in a Bracelet is Love in a Bracelet's the website. So you gave me this when we went to lunch. It's just, let me show it up close before I show all these. Let's see. It's just gorgeous and made so beautifully. You have all sort. If you go to loveinabracelet.com, and you can actually get it through her website as well. But she has healing, grief, and loss bracelets. Also gratitude bracelets. They come beautifully packaged like this. These are all of the gratitude bracelets. How did you get started in this?
Well, this is a combination of things. My former business name was Peggy's Midnight Creations,
Okay.
because I used to, when my children were little and I was working a lot in report writing, I would write reports up until midnight, and then I needed to unwind before I went to sleep. So I would bead, and that's where it became
Okay.
Peggy's Midnight
I like
Creations.
that.
And then I remembered, how powerful it was for me after my fiance died and and my father died and I went back to work. Somebody had given me an angel bracelet, and it was one thing out of all of the gifts that I had been given that I could wear with me as I went back to work. The flowers are wonderful, but they die, and food is great too, but it gets eaten.
Right.
And I loved that I had something left that I could bring with me that it made me feel strong. It reminded me of the love from the person who gave it to me. And because it had an angel charm, it was like my angels in heaven. And that really it helped me go back to work after I had my leave of absence. So that is my inspiration for making the healing, the grief and loss line, because I know how special it was when somebody gave that to me. And I often make them for people in preparation when they're giving a eulogy at a funeral, when they can wear it, and it provides them with comfort, to be able to have that on their wrist while they're actually there. And it just means so much to me that I'm able
They
to
can
do.
look and see it. That's like wearable strength right there. And I know we're at 9, guys, and we're going to give away a copy of the book, but I just want to read you the card that comes with each bracelet, or with the gratitude bracelet at least. It says, gratitude heals. In the middle of the night, when worries of what if keep you awake, gratitude helps quiet your mind and helps you get back to sleep. When you do not have in life what you would like to have, gratitude for what you do have will not only elevate your mood, but will bring more of that into your life. That is because the emotional footprint of gratitude is that you already have what you desire. And this says to the universe, yes, more of this, please. Gratitude helps divert the energy of negative thinking that spirals into anxiety by sending that energy into a new positive direction. Gratitude helps with depression by elevating mood, which is achieved by focusing on something positive in your life. On your most difficult day, when you do not think that you can bear your emotional pain, gratitude eases that pain. This bracelet was designed to help you practice gratitude so that you are better able to utilize it when you need it. Every time your eye is drawn to the center metal bead, think of one person, object, or experience for which you are grateful. This helps train your brain to think more positively and heightens your awareness and appreciation for all that is good around you. You will soon be able to employ gratitude thinking naturally and live your most fulfilling life. Gratitude heals. Beautiful. Beautiful. It's like an intention bracelet right there. I love it.
And I wrote that from how I use it in my own life. At 3 a.m., when the worry thoughts come in, it works for me every time. It helps me get back to sleep and feel more at peace simply by focusing on one simple thing that I'm grateful for.
I love it. You can find all of this at loveinabracelet.com, but you can also access it through her website. So let's give away a book, shall we? So we're going to give away a copy of I Can See Clearly Now, which was going to be your wedding song to Scott. Yes. A memoir about love, grief, and gratitude. Thank you for your generosity in doing that. And let's give a copy away. Let's see. Good luck, everybody. I didn't see a single person who wasn't logged in tonight. That is a first. Christine Wanick. Congrats, Christine. She's one of our moderators. We will get that book out to you. Congratulations. Awesome. So, Dr. Peggy DeLong, thank you so much for being here. I will pick you up in the morning for our big movie day. We cannot wait to see this film, and I hope, again, I'm going to encourage you guys to sign up for the virtual screening. Well, first of all, are the virtual roundtable, which Peggy will be a part of next Wednesday, World Gratitude Day. This is free. It's from 7 to 8:30 Eastern. And you can register at womenofgratitude.com. And then the film screening is earlier in the day. That is not free. It's $12, but it has all the link to view it, on-demand viewing links, and the Q&A. And we will let you know what we think. I think we're in for a real treat, though, because I know Louis Schwartzberg's work, and it's wonderful. So you can check my YouTube site. We're going to attempt to film it, or not film the movie, but I'm going to film a vlog of us going into the city. And it's been a real pleasure having you here. I know we booked this months ago, so it's been really great introducing you to my audience, and based on the amount of comments. And I'm sorry, gang, that we didn't get to all the comments tonight, but you really just have so much beauty and hope to offer the world, Peggy. Thank you for being a part of this world and for offering your gifts to everybody.
Thank you for having me.
Bye, gang. So I will not see you next Thursday, but I hope to see you Wednesday, World Gratitude Day. Let's get our gratitude on together. And I will talk to you next time. Peace and love, and get your gratitude on. Let's see. Let's get to the closing. Here we go.